Thunder cracks like a splitting sky. Across an endless plain of golden grass, shapes move in the half-light. Small, shivering human. No walls, no shelters. Just the smell of wet earth and the hiss of incoming rain. A storm is coming. Not the kind you run from, but the kind that decides who survives. Wind claws through the trees, carrying the scent of predators. In the distance, something roars, and deep, ancient, and hungry. A woman grips a child close. Another digs her hands into the soil, searching for roots, for anything to hold. Their fire dies under the weight of the rain, smoke twisting like ghosts above them. Every sound is danger. Every shadow, a question. This is not a scene from a movie. This was home, the open wilderness that tried to erase us before we ever learned to build. For nearly 2 million years, humans lived without caves, exposed beneath storms, surrounded by teeth and thunder, inventing survival out of nothing but fear, mud, and brilliance. Yet somehow, we didn't vanish. We adapted. We engineered shelter from air, from dust, from bone. So before caves, before fire, before civilization, where did humanity hide from the world trying to kill it? And how did fragile creatures like us with bare hands and beating hearts outwit the wild itself? We've all seen the same image 1,000 times of the so-called caveman, fur-wrapped, crouched near a flickering fire, shadows dancing on stone walls. It's the symbol of early humanity burned into our collective imagination. But there's one massive problem. That picture? It's mostly wrong. Caves, suitable for living, are rare, extremely rare, and most of them were already home to predators far stronger than us: lions, bears, hyenas, saber-tooths, places we die trying to enter. Yet archaeology tells us something astonishing. Our ancestors didn't need caves, they thrived without them. From the scorching plains of East Africa to the icy winds of Central Asia, they built shelters where none should have been possible. We're talking 1.8 million years ago, before modern humans even existed. Before writing, before fire mastery, before civilization, people were engineering homes from stone, branches, and earth. But how? How could fragile, toolless humans survive an open wilderness while surrounded by predators and climate chaos? The answer begins where humanity itself began: Olduvai Gorge, Tanzania. And what scientists found there completely rewrites everything we thought we knew about early human life. The year is 1931. Under the blinding sun of northern Tanzania, archaeologists Mary and Louis Leakey dig through layers of dust that have hidden humanity's oldest secrets. They expect to find simple tools, maybe animal bones. What they find instead are circles of stones carefully arranged in patterns that scream intention. Each ring measures about 12 feet across. Each stone, some weighing over 30 pounds, had been hauled from distances far beyond where they rested. No random scattering, no chaos. This was deliberate, planned, constructed. It was the world's first architecture. These were the foundations of shelters built by Homo habilis, one of our earliest ancestors nearly 1.8 million years ago. They weren't just surviving. They were engineering. Using only branches, thorns, and stones, they created homes that shielded them from heat, wind, and predators. Primitive? Not even close. This was innovation in its purest form, protection born from imagination. As the Leakeys brushed away the final layers of soil, a story began to form. Before caves, before villages, before cities, humans were already builders. And this discovery wasn't a one-time accident. Because once researchers saw the pattern at Olduvai, they started finding it everywhere, and that was only the beginning. So how do you build a home when nature gives you nothing to work with? No caves, no bricks, no steel, just sticks, stones, and a brain wired for problem solving. Archaeologists studying those ancient circles discovered something brilliant. Each shelter followed a precise engineering pattern. The outer stones weren't random. They acted like anchors, holding down flexible branches driven into the ground. Those branches curved inward, forming a dome-shaped frame about 3 meters wide and 2 meters high. Across the top, layers of thorny acacia branches were woven together, nature's own barbed wire, blocking both predators and desert winds. Over that, they spread grass mats and leaves to trap heat during cold nights, yet allow air to move through during the day. Think about that. That's insulation, ventilation, and structural load balancing. Concepts that modern architects still calculate today. Even the placement mattered. They chose gentle slopes for drainage, open plains for visibility, and near river edges for quick access to water. Every decision shows awareness of environmental design. And when storms came, they didn't rebuild from scratch. They used modularity, reusing the same stones and branches season after season. Portable architecture, 1.8 million years before IKEA. This wasn't just survival. It was engineering born from necessity. And once humans mastered the basics, their creativity exploded, because what they built next changed everything we thought we knew about ancient intelligence. Once the pattern was recognized in Africa, the hunt was on. Scientists began revisiting old excavation sites, and the same fingerprints of human engineering started appearing everywhere. Across the grasslands of Eurasia, researchers uncovered remnants of oval earthworks dating back 800,000 years. No caves, no stone walls, instead, underground chambers. Early humans had learned to dig deep into the soil, carving out shelters that stayed warm in freezing winds and cool during the brutal summers. At Kostroma, Russia, teams found evidence of oval pits lined with grass and hide, roofs made from bent saplings and woven mats. These weren't holes in the ground. They were earth-insulated homes, complete with drainage and windbreaks. Move west to France, and the story repeats. At a site called Terra Amata, dating to around 400,000 years ago, archaeologists found post holes, fire pits, and drainage ditches, the first suburban layout in history. Each shelter stood around 8 meters long, enough for entire families, with designated zones for cooking, sleeping, and tool-making. And then to the forests of Germany. At Balsingsleben, preserved tool marks on ancient wood revealed something extraordinary. Humans had built tree platform shelters. They chose living trees, carved and reinforced their branches, and created elevated sleeping decks, safe from floods, predators, and insects, thousands of miles apart, hundreds of thousands of years between them, but the same core, logic, shelter, structure, safety, strategy. It's as if the blueprint of survival, that fusion of creativity and engineering, wasn't isolated innovation. It was inherited knowledge. Each new site didn't weaken the mystery, it deepened it. Because now, scientists were asking a bigger question. How did these isolated human groups who met with no communication across continents invent the same architectural ideas? Imagine the scene. A young boy crouches beside his father as the wind howls across the plains. The father presses a stone blade into his hand, not for hunting, but for building. He shows the boy how to drive the stake into the ground at just the right angle, how to twist the thorn branches until they lock tight like rope. The boy's fingers bleed, but his eyes stay locked on the movement. This isn't just construction, it's inheritance. Every shelter wasn't just a place to sleep, it was a lesson in survival. While adults shaped branches into curved frames, children gathered grass and leaves for bedding. Mothers repaired hide coverings, while elders read the sky for weather. Shifts. Every person had a role, a purpose, a hand in shaping safety from chaos. And through that process, something powerful began to form: community. When you build together, you bond. When you trust one another to survive the storm, you form the first social architecture. At sites like Schöningen in Germany, where wooden spears and tool workshops were found beside shelter zones, scientists believed these weren't just homes. They were social centers, places where humans worked, shared food, and passed down knowledge. The act of building wasn't merely physical, it was emotional, a symbol of care, a promise that you are safe here because we built this together. And in that moment, in those shared acts of survival, we can glimpse the first spark of what would one day become civilization. Before temples, before cities, before walls, there were families, building against the wind. But what truly gave humans this edge, this uncanny ability to create homes out of nothing, it wasn't just hands or tools, it was the machine behind the eyes. When scientists studied fossil skulls from the Homo erectus and Homo habilis periods, they found something revolutionary, a brain not much larger than ours today, but structured differently. The prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for planning, Prediction and spatial reasoning was already expanding. That meant ancient humans weren't reacting to the world. They were designing for it. Add to that a new physical advantage: sweat. Unlike other primates covered in thick fur, humans evolved sweat glands and thinner hair, a biological air conditioning system that allowed them to work for long hours under brutal sun, gathering wood, weaving grass, building shelter, while predators heavier and fur-covered had to rest in the heat. In evolution's harsh classroom, endurance became our superpower, and then came fire. Once humans learned to control it, around 1 to 1.5 million years ago, everything changed. Fire hardened wooden posts, sterilized water, and kept predators away, but it also rewired our biology. The flicker of flame extended daylight, triggering longer waking hours, stimulating communication, imagination, and social bonding. Our shelters became not just protection, but classrooms of innovation. Add chemistry to the mix. Ash mixed with animal fat was used as primitive. Sealant smoked wood resisted insects, dried grass woven. Overclay kept interiors cooler during the day and warmer at night, a level of thermal regulation millennia ahead of its time. The deeper scientists looked, the clearer it became. Ancient survival wasn't a miracle, it was biology and ingenuity in perfect sync. The more we study them, the more impossible it seems that they were primitive at all. For decades, researchers debated whether these shelters could really have worked, or if time had simply preserved coincidences in the soil. So modern scientists decided to test them. At the University of Tübingen, a team of experimental archaeologists reconstructed early human shelters using only stone tools, raw branches, and grass, all gathered from the surrounding forest. They followed measurements from sites like Olduvai Gorge and Terra Amata, 3 meters wide, 2 meters high, woven roof, anchored stones. Then they stepped back and waited. The results stunned everyone. Thermal imaging showed that the inside temperature stayed 6 to 8 degrees warmer than the outside air at night, even without fire. When rain came, the woven roof shed 95% of the water before it reached the ground. Wind tunnel tests revealed that the dome shape redirected gusts upward, reducing collapse risk by nearly 40%. But the most astonishing test came from NASA bioclimatic engineers, who modeled airflow and heat retention using simulation software. They found that the design efficiency of these shelters was comparable to modern passive housing principles, structures engineered to maintain internal temperature with minimal energy loss. Think about that. Our ancestors achieved energy-efficient design 1.5 million years before the term even existed. And it didn't stop there. In a desert experiment in Kenya, researchers built shelters using the same thorn branch frames described in ancient digs. They left one open and one fully enclosed. Inside the enclosed hut, humidity stayed 40% higher, temperature dropped 5 degrees in daylight, and the air remained breathable even after 4 hours of exposure. It worked, flawlessly. These weren't crude huts. They were proto-houses, engineered by instinct, perfected by survival and validated by modern science. And as the data poured in, one conclusion became unavoidable. Humans didn't discover architecture in cities. They invented it in the wilderness. For millions of years, humans didn't wait for safety to find them. They built it. Long before skyscrapers reached the clouds, before blueprints, before bricks, our ancestors looked at an empty horizon and imagined walls where none existed. They shaped homes from wind, grass, and willpower. Every woven branch, every stone circle, every patch of shelter against the rain was an act of defiance against extinction. When predators prowled, they engineered security. When storms tore through the plains, they invented warmth. And when nature offered nothing, they created something. That's the true legacy of pre-cave humanity. Not the crude image of grunting cavemen, but the birth of imagination itself. Because shelter was never just a structure, it was a statement. We belong here. We endure. And that same instinct still drives us today. When engineers design disaster housing that unfolds in hours, when astronauts test habitats for Mars built from local soil, When architects mimic termite mounds to cool megacities, they're continuing a line that began beneath a baobab tree 2 million years ago. The genius of humanity has never been in the tools. It's in the refusal to accept limits. From branches to steel, from mud to concrete, from earth shelters to orbiting stations, every structure we've built carries the same ancestral code. Adapt. Survive. Create. So the next time you see a shelter, a tent in a storm, a refugee camp rising overnight, or a Mars prototype glowing red in dust, remember this. The first architect didn't use a blueprint. He used a heartbeat, a shadow, and a dream. Because the greatest invention in human history wasn't fire or tools or shelter. It was the refusal to accept impossibility.